Fast and Furious 6 starts with Dom and Brian racing, but it turns out they actually are heading to the hospital where Mia is giving birth. Then we see Hobbs in Moscow meeting with Agent Riley. A Russian military convoy was attacked there and satellite components were stolen. Interpol got one of the drivers involved and Hobbs asks him where his boss named Shaw is. Turns out Shaw is in London. Hobbs finds Dom on the Canary Islands. He tries to convince him to help him by showing him a picture of a girl that looks like Letty. Works like a charm. Hobbs asks Dom to assemble his team again. That means Roman, Tej, Han, Giselle, and of course, fresh father Brian. They go to London and meet Hobbs and Riley. He introduces them to Owen Shaw, who is a real badass like ex-military, and we are talking spec ops. Looks like his crew is building a tech bomb designed to block entire military communication for 24 hours. Now after 3 hits, he just needs one last part. Hobbs also plays Letty card. He also promises that if they get him Shaw, he will get them pardons for what they did in earlier movies. Turns out Hobbs knows Shaw's hideout and wires that guy Interpol arrested in Moscow. Shaw is there, but at the same time, his team is approaching the Interpol headquarters. Brian takes the team there while Dom stays to deal with Shaw, hoping he will lead him to Letty. Shaw escapes with this armored bullet and blows the whole building. Dom tries to go after him. Meanwhile, on the other part of London, rest of the team tries to stop Shaw's soldiers, but they disable their cars. Hobbs stays on his back and at one point he jumps on his car, but he shakes him off. Finally, Dom manages to corner Shaw, but he gets shot and turns out it's Letty. Turns out she is alive, and somehow she works for Shaw. By the way, both crews are impressed with each other's performance. Looks like Letty lost her memory, and even when Shaw shows her a picture of her and Dom together, it doesn't ring any bells. Hobbs tells them Shaw's crew ripped off the database of every location that houses the final component that they need. Toretto's crew finds a guy who is equipping Shaw with a kind of car he drove last night. But this dude is sneaky and he secretly gives Shaw a heads up. And soon, Letty shows up and shootout starts. Crazy Mechanic gets shot and before he dies, he gives Giselle a phone leading to Shaw and whispers, "Braga." Turns out Braga and Shaw are working together. Brian decides to go to the US and pay Braga a visit in jail. But to do that, he needs to put himself in jail and Stasiak is more than happy to help. He puts him in jail under a fake name, but he has a limited amount of time before his fingerprints will pop up in the system. Soon, Braga recognizes him and pays him a visit during the night shift. He admits he runs everything for Shaw, and he has like cartels, CIA, and DEA in his pocket. Shaw was actually first to know when Brian put Letty in Braga's cartel undercover. Braga and his men try to kill Brian, but he handles them and Braga tells him that Shaw is a step ahead of them. Back in London, the rest of the crew signs in for some street racing party. Dom spots Letty and he actually challenges her for a race and Rita Ora is doing the counting. Dom wins. Then he takes a chance to chit-chat with her a bit and he tries to refresh her memory by bringing on his A-game. Looks like it works. Then Shaw shows up and tries to talk him into quitting the mission. Dom tells him to let Letty go with him and Shaw says no way. He has a sniper pointing a gun at Toretto, but Dom has Hobbs covering his back, so Shaw takes a rain check. Letty is going through the files, thinking about what Dom told her. Shaw asks her what she would do if he told her to kill Toretto, and she says she doesn't care. Hobbs and Riley try to capture Shaw, but it turns out his hideout is empty, but Hobbs spots a trail. Tej uses it and tracks Shaw down in Spain. Brian gets back and they get into the military base that will be attacked by Shaw. Brian thinks it's going to be easy and Shaw is probably trying to trick them. Turns out he is not attacking the base, but the convoy on a highway. Fast and Furious prepare an ambush, but it turns out Shaw's has a tank. So it's a tank versus street racers. Shaw decides to kill some civilians, and Letty doesn't approve that. Soon Roman gets in trouble, but Brian saves him. Then Brian uses Roman's wrecked car to stop the tank, but Shaw sends Letty to IT off. She gets thrown in the air when the tank gets pulled up and Dom saves her life. Also, they arrest Shaw. Back in the military base, everyone is happy and they think Shaw is done, until Shaw reveals that he sent his men after Mia and Elena. Now he has Mia. Lucky Elena took the baby and escaped. Shaw wants the chip in exchange for Mia's life. Base commander is like, I don't care, but Hobbs is like, oh, we care. They decide to let Shaw tag the chip. Also, turns out that Riley was working for Shaw the whole time. Still, they decide to go after Shaw. Riley gets hit by a car and Mia uses the distraction. Fight between the crews begins. Letty fights with Riley and Shaw chases after Mia. The rest joins in, with Brian fighting Shaw and Dom the big guy. Roman and Tej are having a duel in the middle of an airfield and Brian takes a chance to take Mia and tries to escape, beating this girl. Hobbs joins Dom and they have a tag team match against Shaw and his puppy. Eventually, Dom, Hobbs and Letty win their flights while Tej, Han, Roman and Giselle try to stop the plane carrying the chip. At one point, Giselle sacrifices herself to save Han. Han realizes his anger and throws this guy into one of the engines. Others hook up their cars to the plane and bring it down, making it crash and explode. Dom jumps out at the last second and crashes his car, so everyone assumes he is dead. But he is okay. Toretto gives Hobbs the chip and everyone gets their record cleared so they can return home and have a barbecue. Han decides to go to Tokyo and Hobbs shows up with Elena. Letty is like, I ain't mad you slept with my man when he thought I was dead. She even lets her have a proper goodbye moment with Dom. Film ends with a scene in Tokyo showing Han having a street race. It's the same one shown in Tokyo Drift, only when he crashes we see Jason Statham getting out of the other car and putting Han's car on fire. Then he calls Dom and threatens him.